as meaningless as the actual game is itself and as bad as it's gotten, it is still a barometer for greatness. It is still something that is used as a measurement when GOAT talks roll around, when all-time talks roll around, when, more importantly, Hall of Fame talks roll around. And I will say this, Jose Altuve, who I think is going to be a Hall of Famer someday, but for some reason will probably still have to answer for the sign-stealing scandal, as he still does to this day with some people. There will be voters that'll hold off on voting for him. You know, they'll do that little punishment where they'll put him in timeout for a few years and then put him in, which I think is stupid and unfair. The balloting is going on for the All-Star Game right now. Jose Altuve leads the fan balloting at second base. Now, the way that it works is the fan balloting phase 1 will close a week from tomorrow, June 27th. And then the top 2 at each position and the top 6 in the outfield will go into a runoff to see who starts in the All-Star Game. Jose Altuve has been in 8 All-Star games. He started 5. If he gets into one more All-Star game, he ties for the second most at second base in the history of baseball with Red Schoendienst and Bobby Doerr, who played like a century ago. Like, we're talking, you feel how you want to about the All-Star Game and fan balloting and everything else. This stuff matters when it comes to big-time conversations for things that I think we all want for Jose Altuve once his career is over. That snuck up on me, man. Like, you're talking about being in conversations of all-time. I know he's 34. He's been doing it a long time. And one more, Seth, he ties Ryan Sandberg for most of all time. Like, Jose Altuve is 2 All-Star games away from being the most decorated, 3 from being the most decorated second baseman All-Star-wise in the history of the game.
The one thing that I wondered about when I saw this is like the first few All-Star games Altuve made were when, you know, he was the team's designated All-Star.
Yeah.
They instituted that rule in 1935.
Right.
That was I thought that was a more recent. I thought that was more recent, but yeah. So both Bobby Doerr and Red Schoendienst were playing in that era when everybody had to get sent. So there's no like, oh, well, this is less impressive than when these guys did it historically.
Yeah, I would submit, too. I got to go back and look when Jose started making All-Star. He made his first one in 2012.
Yeah.
I mean, he did hit 290 that year. You know, he had 167 hits. That would be the only one I would say that he made it on that rule, because the next year Jason Castro made it for the Astros in the really bad year in 2013. From then on, he was winning batting titles, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, there's really only – I was
just putting that out there in case anybody had that objection in their mind. That's all I'm saying.
It's a good point. No, it's a really good point. I just wanted to make sure, like, that I wasn't just, you know, kind of just doing a drive-by on that. But I think from 2014 on – I mean, he won the batting title in 2014, so from then on he was Altuve. But I'm into the All-Star balloting, man. So I tell you this. You know, the advice they always say, get out and vote. You know, get on the internet, get in your 5 votes for today, get in your 5 votes for tomorrow. You're allowed to go to every team's website and vote a few times.
I do think, and I wonder just if I'm growing more and more confident that the being better than everybody else scandal, for which now, most people in baseball know and understand that Altuve didn't participate. Like the people, even some of the dumber writers, and they've gotten rid of some of the really dumb writers that don't even follow baseball anymore. They've changed who the voting pool is. Mm-hmm. But that like Altuve didn't participate, and then that people are recognizing him on his own merits. Like he's number one. He's not amongst fans too. He's number one in the voting. Like I don't think, and this is long before he's going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. I think it's going to be a non-issue when it's time to vote him.
That's a really good point. Like this is at least one barometer that the fans have moved on from it.
Yeah.
And now you should too, crotchety old baseball writer. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. This is weird to see, just not to go deep on the All-Star voting, but I looked at an article yesterday that listed like the top 10 at each position in each league and the top 20 outfielders. Mike Trout it's just really weird to see, because even years when Mike Trout was injured, he'd still be one of the top 2 or 3 vote getters. He's 9th. He's 9th among outfielders right now, not amongst overall votes, like 9th amongst outfielders right now. So if he doesn't get voted in, Seth, this will be the first time since 2012 that Mike Trout doesn't get voted in by the fans.
I guess that's just at least a little bit of sanity. The fact that he's ninth in a game in which season in which he played 29 games at all, and had a 220 batting average, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that's there's a certain amount of absurdity to fan voting on these things, and just it's at least part just how big of a celebrity you are. So I don't look at that as anything all that remarkable, other than like, okay, the voting process is only kind of flawed. He played 29 games this year.
No,
he's ninth in All-Star voting.
Yeah, no, I just know, but he is that big a star. It's just jarring when he's been automatically in every year in the fan voting to like, okay, now they're out on him.
Well, and that's where it's been so absurd. Like 2020, played 53 games.
2021. 2020 was a COVID
sorry.
year.
Okay, 2021, 36 games. Sorry, Sean. 2021, 36 games. 2022, he played damn near 2/3 of all the games at 119.
Yeah.
And then 2023, 82 games.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is since the COVID year, 3 out of 4 seasons he's played 82 games or less, and yet in 3 of those seasons previous, he was an All-Star.
Yeah, here we are. Here we are. The Mike Trout irrelevance era is upon us. Hey, I know you saw this over the weekend. We had seen this last week when you were out, but this. As long as we're talking about overrated and underrated, and because the players are eventually going to have to vote on some of these guys for reserves and things like that. I love this poll The Athletic does every year, where they poll 100 players on all these different categories and most overrated, most underrated. Best vibe was one they had this year. Guy you'd like on your team most because of the vibes.
Yeah, Correa got a lot of votes for that one.
Oh, did he?
His vibage
Good
didn't
vibage?
just. It wasn't just like that last year when he was really very much trying to be the obvious leader and going out and visiting pitchers and everything. Yeah, they like his vibes.
Well, they think he's overrated too because he finished 3rd in the most overrated on this poll.
Yeah, that's actually. It's that much harder to have good vibes when people also think that you're overrated.
Because Brandon Scott and I took a run at this thing last week. I know you just saw it. Like, what jumped out at you? What jumped out at you the most about what the players?
Well, I think the first one, the Astros only received 1 vote for team with the worst reputation. They didn't even make the graph. The graph was pretty damning.
They got the also receiving votes at the bottom.
Yeah. So one angry dude out there said that the Astros. It's probably, I'm trying to think of who from that era.
Fires, probably.
I think the fact that I wish they had given them weighted votes. They could only vote for one, because there's a chance that the A's by far got the most votes, and then the White Sox after that. But maybe some guys would have put like the Astros or somebody else. The Angels were in 3rd place. But, the Astros aren't even – they don't have a bad reputation amongst players, which speaks to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Amongst baseball players and baseball people, the being better than everybody else scandal is just distant history. Nobody really thinks about it anymore.
Yeah. That'd be interesting if they did like you just said, if they did it like MVP style voting where it was 1 through 5, if the Astros might have shown up more like, okay, they're not the worst, but they still have kind of a bad reputation. That would have been interesting. But the A's ran away with this. What did you think of the analytics part of this thing?
I thought it was interesting that the vast majority of players, 76 out of 100, thought that analytics have helped their career. 10.8% said no difference. 8.6% said both helped and hurt, and only 3% said hurt. And I'm guessing those are all pitchers that are just like still bitter over the shift. And I would submit that usually when a pitcher is bitter about the shift, it's because that team's analytics staff sucked. It's not analytics itself. It's just that team screwed that dude too many times with their shifts, just inappropriate or poorly planned shifts. So 76%, like that, the whole Moneyball era arguments of analytics or no analytics, that's distant history. The players themselves totally understand. And I think what players appreciate, Correa was huge on this. There was one word, and I'm pretty sure that this is Correa. It allowed the world to know I'm good at defense. Because remember Correa, I'm not sure that it was Correa that gave that, but Correa was the one to bring up like how Derek Jeter's defensive analytics numbers were bad compared to other guys and everything. And Correa's a guy that his WAR was always really high up, mostly because he was one of the best defensive players in the league. So guys like that, I think, really appreciate it. There are aspects of the game that everybody cared about, but like on the baseball team and within baseball, and yet that fans didn't give a single damn about, and there were no stats on it. I think some of the defensive stuff really like helps some players feel like, okay, yeah, they see my total worth at least.
Yeah. It might not be Correa, but I would bet that it's Correa that said that.
If they told you that was Correa, you would not be surprised
at all.
You'd say, oh, okay, that makes sense.
You know, to your point, if I had to guess who it was, I would guess Correa is who I would guess.
That was like when he's a war leader in the league, it's typically because he's got the best defensive war amongst all the guys in the top 5 or top 10 or whatever.
Yep. Texter hypothesizing Trout lost the Asian vote with Ohtani leaving the team. You know what? That it's all done over the internet? That could be. I mean, there could be something to that. Maybe. I mean, he was getting voted in plenty before Ohtani was there, too, you know.
I feel like the fact that they give you 30 votes still it annoys me. I need to know how they arrived on 30 votes. I feel like that's where I think they would have gone 100 votes, but somebody said, all right, then we're just really taking advantage of our fan base, and we're getting all this extra screen time and clickage and everything else. They're helping out our website metrics because we're just encouraging people to abandon their families and click on this 100 times.
Yeah, that's a good point. 30 is a very arbitrary. There's 30 teams. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It's a very arbitrary number. You're right.
Yeah.
So I don't know about Trout with the Asian vote. I will say this. That Ohtani not being in the American League anymore and being on the ballot as the DH, very good for Yordan Alvarez. Ohtani not being in the American League is good for everybody that aspires to win an award or make an All-Star team. He was a guaranteed spot every year, you know?
So, yeah, Kyle Tucker's the one that I'm going to be watching most closely when it comes to All-Star voting. How firm is his grip on third place right now?
Oh, good question. I can look that up as we're
talking
about.
That's all right. But he just the fact. Yeah, I'd much rather see him if he makes a push in the second half of the season to regain some ground on the two Yankees. I mean, that'd be like Juan Soto and Aaron Judge have pulled away from Tucker, where for a while Tucker was better than Soto in a lot of respects, but nobody was talking about him. That between the injury and just not those other two guys playing out of their brains, he's lost some ground there.
He's lost some ground in the voting too. They're way out in front in the voting. Judge leads everybody in the American League. Judge has as of Tuesday, almost 1.4 million votes. Soto 1.2 million votes. Kyle Tucker third with a little under 600,000 votes. So he's less than 50% of those guys.
Right, yeah. So my question about how firm is his grip on the third spot, it's okay, Stephen Kwan, who's in fourth, has 120,000 fewer votes than Kyle Tucker right
That's
now.
A pretty firm hold on third place.
130,000 fewer.
Yeah, that's a pretty firm hold, I would say. So there you go. But the big thing is Altuve. We got to get Altuve into these All-Star games the next 3 years so he can be the greatest second baseman of all time.